Today we are going to look at a completely different topic, probabilistic methods. It's a way to show the existence of some good structure, and this is done using probability distribution or probability methods. This is why it is called probabilistic method. At this point, this sounds vague. What do I mean by good structure? This could be a mathematical structure, that could be a combinatorial structure. You can think of it as kind of a graph. So you want to show that a particular kind of graph exists or something, and this is what we want to show. Important thing is that the problem description will not have any mention of probability. Only the proof idea will require probability. It will be a surprise that we can use probability in such things to show the existence. Let me look at the idea. The main idea is that we define a probability distribution over a set of structures. So if you are looking for proving that a kind of nice graph exists, then we show a probability distribution over a set of graphs. Once we define it, then the task would be to show that there exists a good structure which is equivalent to showing that the probability of getting a good structure is non-zero. So clearly, if the probability of having a good structure is non-zero, that means there exists a good structure, and that will show the probability. At this point, it sounds very vague, so let's move to the examples that will make it very vague. We will take the first example from Ramsey theory, which is covered in graph theory. It might have been covered in your first course on mathematics of computer science. If not, let me remind you what it is. We are going to talk about undirected graphs. They are represented by vertices and edges, which do not have direction. And let's say that the size of the graph is n. That means there are n vertices in my graph. Let me put it in a practical problem. You are given 6 people. I make an edge if A and B are friends. So between 6 people, I have a graph which represents friendship between them. The claim is either there are 3 people who are all friends, or 3 none of which are friends. You might want to think about this problem, and you can prove it using case analysis. But let's model it in terms of graph theory. The 2 important concepts are independent set. So this is a set of vertices, more precisely subset of vertices, such that no 2 pairs are connected. That means for all I, j element of S, ij is not an edge. The opposite concept is called a clique, where for all ij element of S, ij is an edge. None are friends, and this is saying all are friends. So the previous claim changes into any graph on 6 vertices has either an independent set or clique of size 3. Such things are called Rk. More precisely, this is the least n such that any graph on n vertices. So remember the quantifiers. For all graphs on n vertices, there exists either a clique or independent set of size k. It will be illuminating to look at it as n increases. So if n is very, very small, if n is equal to 1, k, or so on, it is very, very easy to find a graph where none of this happens. There is no clique or independent set of size k. But as n increases, it becomes harder and harder to create such a graph. And if n is big enough, it seems intuitive that either there will be a clique or independent set of size. The exercise here proves that R3 is less than equal to 6. As an exercise, you can prove that there exists a graph on 5 vertices which does not have a 3 size independent set. So this exercise mixed with this will show that R3 is equal to 6. This is the least n such that all graphs have either a 3 size independent set or a 3 size clique. Our objective today is to prove that we can give a lower bound on Rk. How should we say that for this particular n, definitely there is a graph for which there is no monochromatic. Okay, so let me just make this notation to make it easy. Monochromatic means either an independent set or a clique. This is my new notation to make it simple. So I want to say that if n is equal to something, this is going to the lower bound, then there exists a graph which has no monochromatic subgraph of size k. You can easily prove when n is equal to k, there is a graph which has no monochromatic subgraph of size k. But can we give a better lower bound? We will use probabilistic method. So what is the probability distribution? Our probability distribution is going to be over graphs, and it is going to be the simplest one. It's the uniform distribution over all possible graphs on n vertices. How many such graphs are there? 2 to the n choose 2. Other way to say it is equivalent way. We pick each edge independently and with probability half. Under such probability distribution, we want to show an existence of good graph. What is a good graph? Does not have k size monochromatic subgraph. So we have to find the probability of having a good graph. Instead, we will find the probability of a bad graph. So first, instead, find probability of one subgraph to be monochromatic. That you can easily show is 2 times 2 to the minus k choose 2. Now this is the number of edges in the k size subgraph. So for the entire subgraph to have all edges, this is the probability, and 2 appears because it can either be an independent set or a clique. The probability that one subgraph is monochromatic is this. Now using union bound, we can prove that no subgraph is monochromatic that is bounded by the total number of subgraphs of size k multiplied by the probability that that subgraph is monochromatic. So probabilistic method tells us that probability of good structure is greater than 0 if this probability, the probability of having a bad graph, is less than 1. This is equivalent to there exists a good graph. For all n, if this is satisfied, then n is a lower bound on Rk. You might want to just focus on this point once more and make sure that you understand this. This is the crux of probabilistic method. Since we were able to show that probability of a good graph is greater than 0, that means if n satisfies this constraint, then it's a lower bound on Rk. And this gives us such a thing is a lower bound. So as an exercise, we can prove that this satisfies this equation. So we got a non-trivial lower bound. K plus 1, all those you can prove, but here we have got a much bigger lower bound on the Ramsey number. So we have shown that Rk should be at least 2 to the k by 2. A small point here, the proof is called a non-constructive proof, in the sense that we did not give a graph which was good. We just showed existence. It seems that such proofs are not really useful for algorithmic purposes. We are not outputting a good graph. But this can be an algorithmic way if we are allowed to have some compromise. So if we say that n is equal to half to the k by 2, then probability that a good graphs exist becomes very big. What does it say? It says that a random graph is, which gives us a randomized algorithm. And that randomized algorithm is very simple. We just pick a random graph, and with high probability it is going to be good. This analysis in general does not give us an algorithm, but if we compromise slightly, here we have a factor of half. Here we did not have a factor of half, so if we just decrease the n slightly, then we get a randomized algorithm. And the randomized algorithm is very simple. You just pick a random graph. And by the analysis, we know that it is good with high probability. It is not going to have a monochromatic k-sub graph. That means it is not going to have an independent set of size k or a clique of size k. The previous example of Ramsey numbers is interesting, but you can have a counting argument to show the lower bound. Let's take one more example, which is going to be more interesting. It is harder to give a non-probabilistic method argument for this example. So first, what is the problem? Suppose S is a set of integers. For this example, we will assume that the size of S is n. We define the set S plus S as a natural summation where S1 and S2 are element of S. Just picking all pairwise sums of the set S. So this is the most natural definition for S plus S. Now, a set S is called sum free if S plus S has no element in S. Other way to say it, these two sets are disjoint. If you look at S, you take any two elements of S and add them, we do not get an element of capital S. What is the problem? The problem is to construct a big sum free set. You can try 1, 2, 3. This is not sum free. 1, 2, 4 is sum free. The first exercise could be to construct a sum free set of size n. Someone gives you an n and you construct a big enough set of size n. If you do this exercise, you will realize that you need a lot of pattern or very big numbers to construct a sum free set. So the next theorem might come as a surprise to you. The theorem says given any S of size n, so you are given any set with n integers, there always exists a subset of it such that T is pretty big, it is at least 1/3 of the total elements, and T is sum. So when we were doing this exercise, we had to find a pattern or very big numbers. But now we are saying that you give any set S and we can find a large enough subset, which is sum. Again, the proof is going to be by probabilistic method. So you would like to define some kind of a probability distribution. In this case, the probability distribution is going to be slightly different. First, consider this set. Again, naturally, it should be this set if S was S1 to S. So we're just multiplying every element of S with R. And R is going to be picked randomly. Why are we defining RS? You might want to see that if S is sum free, then RS is also sum free. RS will move it to a nicer domain where we can talk about sum freeness easily. So how are we supposed to pick R? You might want to take R in the entire integer set, but that's too big and it's hard to take care of probability. So let's pick a prime P is equal to 3k plus 2 form such that P is very big. How big? P is greater than 3 times the maximum element in S. So we pick a very large P and then R is picked uniformly in 1 to P. Then we consider the set RS mod P. The idea is that in this set we will find a large enough sum free set. So RS mod P will be in this set. And one of the important subset of this set is such Z, which you can easily see is sum free. So our set capital S was a set of integers. It could be anywhere, but now by a trick I have put everything inside this new set, and I know that it has a very big sum free set of size 1/3 of the total size. So what we are going to show is that with non-zero probability there exists an R again in this set such that RS is sum free. We might wanted to do this, but this will not be possible. Instead, what we will show is that there exists an R such that RS intersection Z is big. And since it is a subset of Z, this is automatically sum free. So now we only worried about the size of the set. We just want to show that. So if you want to prove this, we only want to show that there exists R such that RS intersection Z is big. In fact, bigger than S by 3. That's the only objective, because once we prove this, we have shown that RS intersection Z is already sum free and it is very big. So how do we show that this is big? We just calculate the expected value of this. This is expected value of the event that RSI is element of set. Summation over all SI element of S. This is again linearity of expectation. We have been using it a lot of times. Now you should be familiar with it. Now this is pretty easy to calculate. This is just the probability. This is an indicator variable. This is just the probability that SI is element of, or I should say RSI is element of set. as an exercise, you will prove that RSI is uniformly distributed in 1, 3k plus 2. So R is random. If you pick all possible R's, then RSI is uniformly distributed in 1, 3k plus 2. This follows from whatever you have learned in mathematics for computer science 1. Once we know this, RSI is element of Z. This happens with probability at least 1 over 3. So expected size of this quantity is more than S by 3. This implies there exists R such that RS intersection Z is more than S by 3. Remember, it is automatically sum free because it's a subset of Z. This need not be a subset of capital S. In the theorem, we wanted a subset of capital S. How do we do that? That's again very simple. We just look at R inverse RS intersection. This is a subset of S and sum free. Also, size of this is more than S by 3. This completes the proof. We were able to show that there exists a set which is sum free and has big size. The idea was to look at all possible subsets of S and project them using this R in this new domain. And we saw that under different R, at least one of them will have high intersection with Z, which was a sum free set. And once we find such R, we just project it back and find the subset. This was a very good example of probabilistic methods. There are more examples covered in the notes. I encourage you to go to the notes and look at more very nice examples of probabilistic method. Thank you.